Do you have a game from your childhood that you fondly remember but just can't remember the name? No? Well, I see your pants smoking there, you liar. Anyway, Khemia Alchemists of Al-Revis is one of those games for me. The only thing I remember was that it was a lot of fun, but for some reason I never really finished it. So a couple of months ago, I was reminded of the name, and for the sake of nostalgia, I booted up again. The game is basically the quintessential JRPG experience. You've got school life, alchemy, turn-based combat, a girl with pink hair, yellow hair, blue hair, and of course, a mysterious amnesiac boy. So what else can you ask for? This is the ultimate JRPG recipe. And all of this is packaged into a simple loop that just keeps you coming back. You kill monsters, you get materials, you use those materials to synthesize items and equipment, you level up, and you go kill more monsters. It's really simple. And the combat system was amazing. It's turn-based, so your turn order is determined by cards on a timeline, and within a single cycle, you can chain multiple actions depending on how you use your skills. There are even abilities that manipulates turn order, so something like speeding yourself up, applying damage over time, or even removing enemy turns completely. But what really makes the combat shine is actually later in the game when you unlock your full party, because things get a lot more exciting. You can switch characters in and out mid-battle, so you're constantly swapping members to chain combos, and depending on when you switch, attacking or defending, you trigger different support abilities. It turns the game from a static, turn-based system into something much faster paced, almost like an action RPG, and it's really just satisfying. Then there's the alchemy. As the name suggests, this is basically the core of the game. You're constantly synthesizing items and equipments, and that's actually how you level up. You gather materials and use them to craft new items. And the synthesizing system itself is a minigame. So it's very similar to a roulette, where you match ingredients to elements, and depending on how well you do it, your items get different properties. So you're constantly experimenting, trying to get the right traits, and that way you can optimize your gear. And as you create more items, you level up. But instead of gaining experience, this game uses something called a grow book. So every time you synthesize something new, you unlock a node. And by spending ability points, those nodes give you buffs like stat increases or even new skills. And I thought this was a really unique and fresh experience compared to the usual JRPGs or like the experience systems. So yeah, it was good. Before we get into the bad parts of the game though, I also want to talk about the characters and the voice acting because they're great. Every character is really memorable with super distinct personalities, and the voice acting takes everything to another level. Now for the bad parts of the game. This game, it has some good meat on its bones, but it's not very well prepared, if you know what I mean. The core ideas of this game are good and simple, yet because of how everything is designed, they become really tedious later on, and this problem shows up in every part of the game loop. So let's take synthesis, for example. In the later half of the game, most of the gear you want to make requires item you have to craft first. So you're not just making one thing, you're making multiple layers of items just to get started. And on top of that, the game doesn't really tell you how to get specific properties. So you're stuck experimenting, and once you finally get what you need, you have to go to a completely different room just to craft the actual gear. For some reason, the item synthesis and gear synthesis are separated. It's really baffling, and it gets worse when the gear you want also requires another gear to craft, which happens a lot in this game. Now imagine doing all of that for 6 characters and 4 equipment slots each. It gets really tedious, and you'll spend a lot of time just trying to get the right properties on the equipments. And then there's the dungeon crawling, which, dear lord, it was just god awful in the later part. This game has a day and night cycle in dungeons. During nighttime, enemies move at high speed in the overworld, and whether you ambush them or not, they will have the advantage in combat. The problem is, every single dungeon is insanely long, and the day cycle is short. So there is no shot at all, that you will reach your objective before nightfall. So you're forced to fight enemies without an advantage, which feels like a lazy way to increase the game's difficulty. And it doesn't help that every quest objective is placed at the absolute edge of the dungeon. And another thing that fuels my frustration is this. Remember how there's no experience in this game? So killing enemies doesn't give you experience. It gives you ability points to spend on nodes you unlock by synthesizing items. But there's a limit to how much you can unlock depending on how far you are in the story. So you end up with a bunch of ability points and nothing to spend them on. So there's no point in fighting these enemies to grind because there's literally nothing to gain from it. Also, because character growth and builds are dictated by the plot, there really isn't much room to experiment, which makes it harder to replay. So yeah, overall, I think this game is okay. It is one of the most JRPGs that I've played in a while. That sounds really weird, but you'll see, it's very JRPG. The thing is, it has a lot of flaws, but I think anyone who enjoys this genre will have a good time with it. It has a really simple but solid gameplay loops and a genuinely great combat system, but it's overshadowed by some pretty poor quality of life. But even with that in mind, it's still a lot of fun. It's definitely one of those titles more people should know about, but that's just my thoughts though. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.